everybody. Welcome to Share Your Secrets. Yeah! Share your secrets. Here's some clapping for you. Oh no, those are seagulls squawking. Here's intensive clapping. Woo! Yeah! Give it up for yourself for being here. Yeah, it's way loud. That's okay. That's okay. It's great to see everybody. Thank you for coming to Share Your Secrets. This is... Well, what is Share Your Secrets, you may ask? You probably know, but for anybody who's new here, this is a weird game show interview thing where we pass knowledge to one another by interviewing an amazing person working in the animation industry, and we're gonna steal as many life animation learning secrets. I had to burp out of our participant in an hour as we can. So yeah, we're squeezing a lot of knowledge juice. Last week we've had Taniko Pintoya, we've had Mike Rianda, and today we have our friend introducing Karen Kuo. There she is on screen. Does that look? Let me play some sound effects. I need Karen, what do you want? Do you want like a or an organ thing? Yeah, there it is.
That sounds cool.
Or a beep boop. That's a fun one. Or some more. Let's see those. Karen, thank you so much for being here and sharing secrets with us. Karen has been amazing enough to reach out to Open Animation and volunteer to help us out and to share knowledge. If you didn't know, Karen is a visual development artist who has worked at DreamWorks, Insomniac, Warner Brothers, Netflix, and just makes amazing, beautiful illustrations that I could stare at for forever. And you know, it's like hitting that point of making something that is so visually engaging that you can literally just kind of stare at it and just hang out and just stare at something. Congratulations on hitting that point. Karen also is giving back to the animation community on the first Friday or the last Friday of every month. She has office hours, and you should go sign up for those if you want any portfolio feedback or technical help. Just amazing advice stuff. Yeah, anything you want to say?
Yeah, it's super chill, super casual. You can drop in if you have a certain question and want it answered, or you can chill and like hang out for the whole hour. But yeah, technical questions, portfolio stuff, anything to do with Viz Dev or even adjacent stuff I can try to help with. But yeah, I just want to be like an easy, chill, open resource place in case you have questions like, why does my lighting look weird? Or like, I don't know what that is. Like, my door is always open. But yeah.
I love seeing these things kind of pop up. Did you kind of have any of these things? I don't know, when you were studying animation stuff, just kind of resources, or yeah, I don't know, just
no.
Yeah.
Not really.
I feel like there was like maybe the occasional cold email or like
yeah,
or something.
I would like work up a little courage and send an email to like one professional and be like, okay, that's my whole quota. And I feel like I made a lot of like super dumb mistakes. So I feel like now that I'm like, okay, I'm standing at an okay point.
Yeah.
I'd love to like save like a student the agony of making the dumb mistakes that I made, because I definitely made so many.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It shouldn't be so mysterious. I feel like like entering the industry. So
yeah,
I'm happy to help.
Cool. And this is you know what? I think that this is the most I'm gonna rival. I'm gonna just say it. This is the first time I've said it. I think that this is equivalent to a Harvard education just by watching these is the two, now three of these share your secrets, I think is equivalent to, you know what, yeah, it's an Ivy League esque, maybe not full Harvard, but we're definitely hitting a Yale. We have to go through the explanation of knowledge points, and Karen, on this amazing secret show, you can win prizes. And you might be asking, what are those prizes? Well, at your tier 1 prize of getting 5 to 10 knowledge points, which are knowledge points are made up. It's our made up economy where it just exists. You know, it just exists.
That's cryptocurrency.
It's a cryptocurrency-esque type of thing. We hope to eventually kind of veer in that space, is really making some money off of these things.
Cool.
But yeah, we call them bings. There's occasional bings. You can say a bing if you're feeling like some knowledge was dropped. I'm saying bing. The chat is going bing. Jess is saying bing. And we're just kind of collectively adding up all those bings. We've got a very scientific tally note on those bings, but two, but it's also purely nonsensical and from the gut. If you're hitting 5 to 10 knowledge points today, do you know what you get?
Any new car?
It's kind of it's a personal check from me.
Oh.
I've signed it already, so it's a cashable check. Those are 4 knowledge points, and those are that's 39/100 of a cent of American dollars.
Gosh.
So yeah, that's actual money, real currencies, not cryptos.
Ooh.
So that's tier 1 is first off a real check. Which, when was the last time you got like a signed personal check?
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. Oh my gosh, I really think it's been a really long time since I got a physical check. I can't even think of the last time.
Well, that's a bit of a goal. I think is just kind of getting something in the mail and then just seeing a check and then having to drive it over to a place and then trying to cash it. So
yeah,
it's really a burden that we're trying to put on you.
No, it's good. It's renewing an old life skill that I should have.
Oh yeah, good. It was tough to write that check. Let me just say, it's tough to. Tier 2, 11 to 20 knowledge points, which is pretty tough. Which is my brain at that point. I'm an enlightened being. You get some doggy bags for your dog, for your doggies. So these are not just dog poop bags, a full roll.
Oh wow!
But these are compostable too. So
very nice. Good for the environment. Excellent.
Next level dog bags. And then tier 3, which is impossible. 21 to 500 knowledge points. There's no more knowledge. This is a holographic or a shiny Squovit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fancy.
So it is a basic, but it is a it's got the shine to it.
It's shiny though, yeah. Ooh, I can put that in my Pokemon card binder that I have from when I was a kid. I still have it. I kept it.
This has not been touched by human hands. It's pure, it's like straight into your sleeve.
Fancy. Very cool. Very cool.
So Karen, that's what you're playing for.
I'm very excited, and I mean that legitimately.
It's not a car, but it's those things.
It's better than a car.
It's better than a car.
It's like a walk down nostalgic land.
Yeah. There's some usable things. There's some actual currency overall. And on that note, we're gonna put an hour on the knowledge clock, which we've got a full hour of just, you know what, learning stuff. Round 1. This is our first round. This is the easy round. We have a new segment called The Journey, which, you know, like, I want to hear the story. That journey, that, like, no frills. I don't know. There can be frills. But the journey that you want to talk about in terms of your learning journey, your animation journey, your art journey. What's been the journey for Karen?
Well, I definitely had more of like a very roundabout journey. Some of my friends, like, they went to school, they're like, I've known I wanted to do animation since I was a baby, and I'm like, that's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely was not in that boat. When I went to college, I went to UC Davis first for animal biology because that was like when my family was like, go be scientist, like science. I'm like, okay. And it was great up until we had like a dog cadaver lab, and I was like, this dog looks like my dog, and I was like, oh, I don't think I want to do that. Like, I love dogs, but saving their lives is like a different thing. So I was like, well, I really like art, so I like looked into like animations, art, not even fine art first. And there was this really weird major at my school called like technocultural studies, which was essentially like a science fiction major. Like, it was like we watched science fiction movies and like talked about ramifications of like the matrix on
that
society.
Sounds like the perfect class, the perfect major. That's not
it was
even
great.
Just a class, it's a full major.
Yeah, it was. I have a degree in that. And it's it was like a BS. It was like a scientific major. I was like, how is this? Anyways, so it was such a weird time. But I had a teacher there who he was like an annual speaker at SIGGRAPH, which is like this big visual effects symposium every year. And like, he was like one of like the forefronts of like end cloth simulation talk. And I was like, I don't know what that is. But I took like a few Maya classes with him. And in general, he just showed a lot of like movies, like behind the scenes for like Pixar and things of just like how it's built and designed. And like, I just never thought about it really. Like, I watched all this stuff. I love all this stuff, but I didn't think that like, oh yeah, a ton of people like have to make it, which seems like a really dumb realization. But I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. So I like frantically started looking into that because I was like, okay, I'm like in my final semester at Davis. I'm about to graduate. It's okay. It's not too late. I can pivot. It's okay. So I graduated and I went to Art Center, College of Design in Pasadena. And like, I was like, I'm going to look for an MFA, which I think back to it is like, this has no use, like really as for like Viz Dev or stuff. But I like reached out to them because I was curious and they were like, oh, come check it out. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't really want a third bachelor's degree. And like, that's not a flex because the first two are like fine art and science fiction. So it's not like, but essentially like, I was like, they were like, yeah, they showed a bit of like visual development is like a career. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, you can design and like, you know, make things that like blew my mind as like when I was starting out. And that's kind of, I went to there and I went to Art Center for 4 years and then graduated and worked in games for a year. And then I made my way to animation and I've never looked back since.
Never looked back. In terms of just that transition of like, okay, I've got this degree, and I'm maybe going, getting an MFA or taking a side turn. That like portfolio process, like or developing the artwork to take that kind of step over. I don't know, what was that period like of just the like, oh, I'm maybe drawing specific stuff. Or how do I adjust my art? Do I do art yet? Like, were you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was a weird time. I also broke my arm at that time in a bicycle accident, my dominant arm.
And it's, geez.
I like smashed it to smithereens. So I couldn't actually draw. Like while I was graduating, I had to like withdraw from a few classes, and I was like, oh no, portfolio. But essentially, like, I bought like the smallest possible tablet I could find that wouldn't require me to move my arm. And then I just like looked into like, I don't know, I feel like because of that, I was like, what's the most efficient way to like draw things and like paints, and like I fortunately had a fairly large amount of stuff from like all the Maya classes I'd taken. Like we learned to do like basic animations, and like my thesis had been a short film.
Yeah.
So like I had at least that to kind of lean on. Yeah, it was, I don't know, what did I even submit? It was a lot of like, I think I just crossed my fingers and threw all the animation stuff in and a ton of figure drawings and just hoped for the best. So I was honestly kind of amazed that they accepted me because it was a very odd portfolio. But I think that there might not have been much like CG back then, like in incoming portfolios, and they might have seen like the technocultural studies major and thought it was like CG major. I don't know. But yeah, it was honestly like really lucky because some of my classmates were like, it took me a few tries to get into that school, and I was like, oh, I feel like I was really lucky that I had just like a really weird portfolio.
Yeah, in terms of like your I don't know, the first bits of you drawing and kind of like learning to draw, has that just been something that like you've drawn your entire life, or was it like, oh no, I hit like a year of just that's what I'm drawing, or I don't know, I'm just I'm getting better at art, or what? I don't know. Has it just kind of been yeah.
I drew a lot. I drew a lot as a kid. My parents were very like traditional Chinese parents, and they were like, no.
No.
But I was like always like the dude. Like I drew. I don't know why. I drew a lot of Chinese dragons as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, and they terrified my parents. They thought I was like possessed. They were like, why are you drawing all these like scary Chinese dragons? And they actually put me into like a dragon boat drawing contest. Whoa. And I was like 8 and I won like first place.
Yeah.
Because of my like dragon drawing obsession. It was very weird. But I didn't even really think of it as like a serious career choice, because even growing up, my parents were always like, that's cool, you can keep it as a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, but
was that just kind of like you drawing in class, or just drawing things you see and just kind of having like a kind of sketchbook, but like just drawing just because?
Yeah, like my notes and my margins were my sketchbook. And it was a lot of like, it was just a lot of weird, like I don't think I encountered like academic drawing until even in college at Davis. We had like, I started a figure drawing club because at some point I felt like, oh, I'm not learning how to, like I had abstract painting classes, which is cool, but kind of doesn't give you any like hard technical skills.
Do you feel like you just kind of absorbed like stuff, like I don't know, drawing in the margins, or just kind of drawing stuff? So there wasn't really any like some ways classes you were taking, it was just kind of just drawing stuff?
It was definitely like a lot of, I feel like that time made me really realize like what I like to draw, what I didn't like to draw. Like, that was like my personal journey there for sure.
I always wonder about that, where it's like how many people like what the natural art ability of, like, is that a thing, is that not a thing, is it just just a matter of just drawing kind of a lot, or is it like no, there's kind of an inherent visual thing? Do you have any kind of thoughts on, I don't know, like is there an inherent skill?
I think I feel like regardless of whether there's an inherent skill or not, like having like foundational classes that will like kind of focus you, or just like get you into the mindset of like visually problem solving is largely what carries whatever it is, you know? I mean, when I was at Art Center, I was really crappy. I was not a good artist when I was like, I feel like I was like barely understanding fundamentals at first, and I was like, oh gosh, like there are like 18-year-old students who are like able to like replicate like, you know, beautiful marble busts, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely a little behind. But I feel like learning how to understand how to draw, I think, is what really can speed up that whole like
I've like just been looking at like like perspective videos I've been seeing online, or just kind of those foundational things, and it is like I don't know if I ever really like learned these things, but those foundational things are like, oh my gosh, that's the building blocks for so much of this stuff. Oh my goodness, open notes. Karen sent us a treasure trove of just amazing resources. Here, let's go over here. I'm gonna bring them over. All of these, so open notes are just links for things that have been helpful, whether or not it's just websites, books, videos, anything. Yeah, but this list is like absolutely killer. Do you want to talk about any of them? We have a
Yeah, sure. Quick rundown. Getty Images. Oh, that's great if you want like slightly more curated images. Like if you're like, I need to know what the Byzantine Empire looks like from then, and you type it into Getty Images, you get like really good images that are like very clear and they're correct. Because sometimes Google's like a little questionable. You'll do that and you'll be like, is this all correct?
Yeah.
Like it's really valuable. I feel like sometimes I use all three, like Pinterest, Google, and Getty Images, but sometimes that's really good for a specific ref, like historical ref. Oh, my dog agrees. Map Crunch is great because I don't know if you've used that before. It's kind of like Google Maps, but when you hit it, it just randomizes an area.
Oh, cool.
So if you're doing landscape studies, you can quickly grab a ton of like cool images and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the perspective stuff by Thomas Romain's pretty good. I feel like perspective is always like that monolith that every set designer kind of is like, am I good at perspective? Why is it so hard? Why does it look weird? And like Thomas Romain's notes are really great. I feel like they kind of make it a little more digestible. Zach Retz's stuff is great. I feel like he's really good to look at for like really clear shape, like differentiation and images and like concept and like how to kind of create thumbnails really quickly. I took a class with him at Brainstorm and like, yeah, he's got a really good workflow and his gumroads are really cheap and they're really fun.
Cool.
Film camera angle cheat sheet. Yeah, I just I feel like it's good to know a little bit of film, like angle, wide angle shots, close-ups, like just the small stuff like that. Like we don't have to do that much in Viz Dev, but being able to know what those are really helps in creating key scenes, cool paintings, all that jazz. And then there's Blender. So like Heavy Poly does a lot of really cool Blender tutorials, and some of them are free. And it's always it's a good way to like get your foot wet in like a little bit of CG, like modeling stuff without it being like super crazy.
How helpful has that kind of been in I don't know, the stuff that you're doing kind of now, or maybe specifically in animation? Just an understanding.
I use it quite a bit, mostly because all the projects I've been on have been CG pipelines, whether it's CG or feature. And it's not that you have to be like a modeler, because then you're a modeler. But knowing a little bit of literacy, like I use mostly Maya. And sometimes it's useful just to be like, I made this room, and then they're like, what's the scale? And like it's a little harder sometimes to show that in drawing. It's easier to, I built like cubes and I imported the character somebody made and I'm showing scale. Like it's just kind of an easy way to help you be more clear, which is always like the biggest thing as a Viz Dev artist. You just want to be like super clear about what you're trying to show.
But that really is just a thing that like, oh, you have in your arsenal of like, oh, instead of drawing it or instead of like typing it out or like having to like explain it word wise, you can just just kind of quickly build that stuff?
Definitely. That's when killer. You describe something verbally, everybody has a completely different idea of what you're trying to say. Like guaranteed. So I take the guesswork out and just kind of like, look quickly, this is what I was thinking. I'm like, oh great. Blender is great for that, and it's free, which is excellent and pretty robust, honestly. Like full productions are using it now. It's like kind of becoming industry like usable. It's like that's
wild because it's free.
It is. Yeah. And it's really good. And it's really, you don't have to have a super powerful rig to use it, which I like. Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Yeah. And then, high res reference. Yeah. The Photo Bash, I think it's mostly actually used for matte paintings, but sometimes I buy packets off that because they'll be like, here's all these super clear views of like what, like I don't know, like what the Roman like art, like Pantheon looks like from all these angles. I'm like, oh, great. Like, so sometimes I buy things for just ref because I like to keep like a library for myself.
In terms of just like the amount of reference images that like a visual development artist uses, like one, like, are you on the higher end of the uses a ton of pictures, or but just like the importance of using reference and using kind of pictures, and have you seen people that like kind of just don't, or have you seen people who do it to a crazy amount.
Well, like, so I use so much ref just to
Yeah.
look at. Like
Yeah.
a lot of I don't really paint realistically, so I don't ever like directly use it that much.
Yeah.
But like it is so important. Like, and you can super tell when you see somebody who didn't look at any reference, because like they'll be like, "This is a castle," and I'm like, "Where is it from?"
Yeah.
And it's like a very weird, generic, like, and like all the personality and design comes from knowing what it is. Is it like a 17th century Irish like castle from the loch, like, or is it, like even when you're making up stuff, like it's easier to do that if you know all this, like all the actual reference. Like I feel like really senior artists, like it's really magical when they draw, right? Because they just pull all this out of thin air, but it's because they've like hoarded ref for years and years, and like it's all ingrained, like it's all built into your ability to like design, right? So I think that, I mean, I have a gigantic folder of ref, and I'm always collecting it. And it's just like good to know, like even if you're designing like a vacuum cleaner, like just Google it, be like, what does a vacuum cleaner look like? What are the parts of it? You just need to kind of know a little bit of the construction, right? And it helps. And like if you apply that to everything when you design, then you'll always have like a really convincing like sort of aspect to your work, as well as the fact that like you won't feel like you're making stuff out of nothing. Because if you've ever had like a drawing or a layout where you're like, I don't know how to fill this with stuff, it's because you just don't have enough like mental reference of what to put in it. So that always helps, I think.
Yeah, that's killer. You got books. You got books on books.
I got books. I got lots of books. So these are like my super go-to books. I have a lot of weird niche books. Like, you want a book on industrial furniture from the 15th century? I have a book on that. But like that's like niche, and that's what you want. But like I have them here. Some really good books. Like this book is like the only perspective book that I've ever read that wasn't like super hard to understand. Like it's really basic, and I kind of like it. It's
actually made easy.
Yeah, it's actually really easy. It's like broken down into like little drawings and a little bit of text, and it's like it's pretty digestible. Like I have 5 or 6 perspective books, and they're all like insane, but this one's pretty good.
Cool.
I also have this book. It's the Smithsonian Natural History book. You can get it on Amazon for like $30 new and like $20 old, and I love this book. But whenever it's hefty. Whenever I have to kind of just like I don't know quite what I'm designing yet, but I know kind of the vicinity, because it breaks it down by like geographical location. You could just be like, what is, like what do tropical plants look like? And it gives you like a little blurb of what it is. So it's like it's an easy jumping off point. That's to like
so sick.
Figure out. Yeah, it's like, because sometimes like I don't know what all the plants are from the top of my head. So looking at that is really helpful. They have animals and rocks and minerals and plants inside. It's great.
Oh my gosh. Also, we'll have all the references in our Discord channel, and we'll post them all. After the discussion. I absolutely love those books where it's just like you don't necessarily know what you're looking for, or maybe you do, but then it's just this kind of like, oh, everything's already there. That is something that is a little bit actually hard to maybe get on the internet. It's like the randomness or the stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you got any of these other books that like the Andrew Loomis book in terms of figure drawing, importance for you of figure drawing, and I don't know if the book itself. Super chewed up Andrew
Loomis book. My dog got to it. Cool. But it's okay. It still works. I love this. This book is great for just anatomy, like understanding, and like from like an illustrator's point of view. Yeah. Because I feel like some of those like really hardcore anatomy books are great, but then you're just like, I'm drawing every muscle and I don't know what's happening.
How did you like read books or read because I think for me a lot of the times it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna copy that picture, or I'm just like hey, I'll just copy that picture but not read it. I don't know, it feels like there are a lot of kind of ways. Do you read? Do you study? I don't know, just with books.
I feel like I have a pretty bad strategy
Uh-huh.
where it's kind of like put out the fire once it started. So like when I like if I have if I have an assignment where it's like, oh, we have to draw like a marble statue, then I'll be like, oh no, I have to go look it up. I'm gonna go find as many books as I can about like classical figure drawing, and then I use that to solve my current assignment.
Right.
But then once I did that, I learned it, right? Like a lot more specific stuff is usually how that happens. Like I like to collect, you know, certain things, like research for myself, but definitely I feel like I'm scratching the surface with all the rest.
Yeah.
That's out there. But I want to read more.
Yeah. What's elemental magic? I've never.
Oh, it's great. I have it. I got this from my first art director recommended it to me. But essentially it's like a book on effects drawings, and it's like old school, like I feel like I think it's like somebody from Disney who was like an effects artist, but they're really great because they essentially break down like visually what effects look like. And they're so specific sometimes where they're like, you know, like fire and water colliding to create steam, what does that look like? And it's a lot of like visually describing physics and kind of understanding. So, you know, whenever like, especially when I do like development work, sometimes there's like lasers and things exploding, and like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And understanding, like, this book kind of helps you synthesize that, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Looking at, and it's pretty fun to look at. It's a lot of, yeah.
Is that the case for like books? Is you just kind of open, like, you know, I don't know, for books, for me it's like oh, I know I'm supposed to kind of look at this book because it pertains to it, and then you just kind of flip through and maybe read kind of bits. I don't know, for you, is it like you keep the book out, or is it I don't know, just for you?
Yeah, I guess I refer to it when I need something specific. I think unfortunately I haven't like read something cover to cover.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever really done that.
Yeah, that's, now that I say it out loud, I feel a little disappointed in myself.
No, but it's still like, that's the weird thing, is like, it's incredibly important to have, though, of like, oh, just this book being there and then being able to kind of flip or even just have it as like a bit of a reference, I think is like a weird weird power of like.
Yeah. I try to like keep all my reference within arm's length. Like, what is it? What is that?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love antique restoration videos. That's I feel like that's just a joy, but then also helpful to your world.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think the amount of like, I think it's weird because like it's not something I thought about, but it's like the more you understand how stuff is constructed, it becomes easier to design it. So like I started watching those for fun, and then I realized I was like, oh, this is really useful for understanding like how does the scale work on the inside, especially for like CG. Sometimes, like, not a scale specifically, but when you design things, you have to really show how they work.
Yeah.
Like a train, like I designed a train a while back, and like all the moving parts, and I was like, what? How does this work? I had to watch all these like YouTube videos of trains moving from like side view, and I was like, so yeah, knowing how stuff.
How much time would you do that though? Like in terms of like, okay, you're on the clock, you're doing a job you're getting paid for, but yeah, just like how much of the kind of task is gaining reference, gaining an understanding. I don't know. I know it's project or thing to thing, but is there kind of like a percentage amount of time that you might be like, oh, this is time that I'm working, but it is just reference, or I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like that's actually a good question. How much time do I spend gathering reference? I feel like I've actually changed my pipeline a little bit to accommodate for being able to gather as much reference as I can by being able to concept very quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I feel like if I have an assignment and I have like 3 weeks on it, I would probably spend like the first 3. It's hard because I feel like I continuously go back and look at reference and find more things as I go, but I would say maybe like 8% to 10% of that whole time is spent just digging out reference. I mean, there's definitely a weird point of just like, I watched a ton of YouTube videos of people sanding down tables because I didn't know what the inside of it looked like.
Yeah, but that is like a legit like on the clock kind of thing though. I would.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
don't
for
know.
sure.
I feel like that
Yeah.
stuff that's kind of lost, where it's like I'm maybe watching a documentary that's kind of not related, but it is related,
Oh,
or
for
something like
sure.
that.
Yeah, no, you gotta know that. I feel like that's actually the number one thing like my production designer, art directors will always bug me about. They'll be like, this is cool, but like the way that joint works together, is that really how it works? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yes. And then I frantically go look at videos to confirm my thoughts, and I'm like, yeah. Or oh no, I need to fix it. Just like
Right.
key not anything. Um, yeah, definitely ref collection is so important. When I do like freelance, I feel like I spend a lot of time doing it because you're just jumping into a project out of nowhere.
Right.
And like I'll spend like the first week while working, I'll also just like be constantly trying to absorb ref. If it's like design Brooklyn, I'm like, like I have to look at like as much brownstone buildings and all that stuff and like
Yeah.
things I don't know anything about.
Is that the case? Like, would you say, I don't know, in the visual development world too, like just having reference in your brain, or having kind of like an understanding of just visuals as a whole, without maybe even the like drawing aspect of it or the painting aspect of it? Like, have you kind of noticed that is like visual development people just have like, they just have, I don't know, like a good reference of an understanding of like architecture, of
Oh my
design,
gosh,
of,
yeah.
right?
Oh, especially yeah, the more senior like my production designer is
Uh-huh.
like I remember like we were talking and he was like, yeah, because the way that like a composite wood desk is put together is you have a piece of particle board and then two pieces of laminate and then it's like a 90-degree bevel
Mm-hmm.
or a 45-degree bevel on it. And I was like, what? Like, but like they all know all this stuff, whether it's like architecture or just like how a drawbridge works to like deep intensity because they've had to design it at some point and then
Yeah.
they obsessively researched it and then it never left their brains.
Right.
So I feel like that's where it looks really magical, right? When you see artists who are like, oh yes, I can make this whole castle. I'm like, but it's because they spent hours and hours like obsessing over all the finer points of it because
Yeah.
they had to do it at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely like, yeah, because once you have obsessed over it, you kind of know about it, right?
Yeah.
So when you design it in the future, you can be like, oh yeah, I know that. I don't have to like I still have the images,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have to go and do the whole dog and pony show of looking up everything again and relearning everything.
Right. Yeah. Because I feel like maybe some of the time the like scrolling through I don't know, Pinterest, Instagram things, there's things that are visually like interesting, but then feeling like it's kind of maybe that well, that's not work, or I'm procrastinating or something like that. But then I don't know, it does kind of seem there's like a consistency to know like that you're kind of visually drawing, or you're building something in your brain.
Yeah, it haunts you. It's like a ghost. Like after you learn it, it just like floats around your brain.
Yeah.
Like hey, yeah, for sure.
The Eli Roth's History of Horror documentary, that's sick.
Oh yeah, so that was something I was watching recently because they dropped the second season on Amazon.
Yeah.
I really love horror films, and I love that series because it's all the like directors and sometimes the makeup effects artists and like various actors, and like they talk about like they categorize it by genre and then they talk about like all the stuff behind how it was made or conceptualizing what's so scary. Like I don't know, horror is like so interesting because it's the only genre that's like we're just trying to scare you to death. Like but there's a lot of design and thinking that goes into that, and it's yeah, I really recommend it if you like horror. It's really great.
Yeah, seems awesome. And then I think the last one is the Spherical Panorama tutorial.
Oh yeah, that's like a really weird thing. I was actually looking into that recently, so I was like, oh, I can share that with you guys. It's a cool tutorial, but it's how to essentially it's a really crazy fisheye drawing, and that thing shows you how to do it. But then you can essentially like dump it into like I think Facebook has an app where you can just look around the room. So if you go to the bottom, you can pan around it it just looks normal. Like that looks like crazy land.
Yeah.
But they give you a template and everything, and it's really not like that insane. But I was like, I don't know, something weird that I kind of wanted to look into. Yeah, that thing right there. You can pan. It's like normal.
That's killer.
Yeah, it's cool.
Cool. Yeah, these open notes. I love. Bing 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 bing. Yeah, the bings have been in there. But yeah, we'll share all those in the Discord. Thank you, Karen. I'm gonna move past that. We're just getting to the baby claps. That is the first round. That's the first
Yay!
round of Karen. That was a killer. We got through the easy round, but now we're heading into the round 2, which is kind of uncharted territory. One, I want this is a segment called Karen Asks Karen or Karen, which is just a question. Karen, what's a question that like you've kind of wanted to ask, or what is a question that if somebody was asking you in terms of like an interview that you're like, damn, that's a good question, like that you kind of wish that somebody asked? I feel like that's kind of happened where it's like hey, ask that question. This is basically me getting out of asking the question.
The responsibility's on me now. Let me think. Oh, that's a good question.
This is a trial. Is Karen Asks Karen or Karen?
I ask myself.
Where it's like, hey, you know that there's maybe knowledge in this question. It's a little bit of
right. Gosh, I ask myself so many things all the time that I.
Yeah, it can also just be a very simple, dumb question that you just want to ask yourself.
Oh, you know what? I do have a question that I would love to ask myself. So, like,
go ahead and ask yourself.
Okay, so as an artist who's trying to always get better, like how do you differentiate having hobbies and activities for yourself that you enjoy, but also like whether or not like is there like a balance between the number of things you do for yourself that make you a better artist, or just things that you do for yourself that make you happy, not a better artist? Because like I always had this huge problem where I would be like, I'm gonna take up photography because I like taking photos, and I can take photos of my dogs, and I can also take a ton of reference photos and compositions that will help me become a better layout artist. And that latter part kind of like kills the joy of it.
Right.
I got to a point where I was like, I have all these hobbies, but like I started all of them in thinking that it would help contribute to like making myself a better artist. But then I feel like it didn't give me any like downtime or like differentiation between like just going out and having a nice day and like doing research for myself.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's always something I feel like I would ask myself is like, where's the line, Karen? Because sometimes I don't know where the line is.
Yeah. Like, because I don't know, I've been thinking about that lately where it's like, I don't know, I guess this idea of like play and the importance of play, which I don't know, like I guess that the part of the definition of like play is like, it's supposed to be pointless. Like it's not supposed to have a kind of goal or and that being in, apparently it's super important to just kind of like childhood development. Play is incredibly important to creativity. And yeah, just the creative process of like, if we're always doing something for the sake of benefiting, this thing that we do as a job or whatever, is that hurting us? I don't know. Like in terms for you, have you come to a conclusion of whether or not it's like, that thing that I did just for the sake of doing it didn't even matter if it was, I don't know, didn't even matter. Yeah. That I guess balance is just a difficult thing.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find the balance, but I definitely am trying to have a couple of things that just have no ability to make me a better artist, like at all. Like I like to cook. There's no way that can make me a better artist, I think. As long as I don't think about plating too hard, or like, it's just like, but I think it's important to just have hobbies that don't pertain to, like, as creative people also trying to make that creative stuff work for a job, it can feel like you're trying to bottle lightning sometimes, where you're like, it's like my creative ether, but also it needs to be structured and have like a really predictable outcome so I can make a living off of it.
Right.
And I think contrary to what I initially thought when I was like younger, was just like, I have to work really hard to get this to work.
Yeah.
It's like good to go like on a road trip and not take a camera and just like have a fun time and come back and be like, oh, cool, I gathered nothing intellectually from that other than just like hang out with my friends, which is great.
Shit.
So I think that's important.
Bing. Trust in that stuff. That's important to collectively, just life.
Yes.
Hard days. This is a segment where you talk about hard days and what do you do in terms of I don't know, like if it's a life hard day, but that affects that affects work, or if it's a work hard day and that affects life. Just is there a process for you, or just things that maybe have helped, things that maybe haven't, or I don't know, just talking about the off days.
Sure. I mean, off days happen always. Life happens.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just like know when to just be like, I just need to take a break. Like whether it's work, just like take a day off if something like insane happened in your family or something, and you're like, I don't think I can draw through whatever is happening.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to take a day off. I think when I first started working, I always had the weird fear that if I was like gone for a day, like the show would like catch fire and explode, and I would be fired, and like everybody would be like, we hate you. But that's definitely never the case. Like everybody moves fine, and like everybody knows that stuff like that happens. I think it's good to take time for yourself for sure. I mean, sometimes if I have art block, I sometimes just try to do more activities that don't stress me out, like or just aren't art related, and kind of hope when I come back I'll feel a little less art block.
Yeah, that is like the weird thing about the art block thing is like doing the opposite or doing something outside of it is maybe the quickest way to kind of get there. It's not forcing yourself to. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. This is a segment called Visualize, where I think we both close our eyes and we're gonna draw stuff.
Okay. A Sharpie.
and let's talk about the world of like visual development. Okay. And so like, man, we're just there's a term in open animation that's visual jazz. We're just playing some visual jazz, which whatever that means. We're not even trying to draw anything, but just getting stuff down and just talking about the world of visual development as we kind of just make some marks of what is the world of visual development? What's the goal? What's the purpose?
So gosh, I feel like I hear visual development thrown everywhere, and simultaneously so specific but also like so vague.
Right.
And I think even in different countries or even different states it's something different. Like I once saw a job ad for a visual designer, and it was for a storefront design, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, but I guess visual development, at least in the context of animation, means that you are conceptualizing more often than not set designs or props. It's more of like environment, like character side is like character designers, right? But also there are jobs where you do all three. I've been a Viz Dev artist where I also did character work. So, but essentially it kind of just means that you can solve, like visually you can solve issues, right? Whether it's like, oh, we have a script, we have boards, but we don't know what the space looks like. You come in and you're like, okay, like I've looked at all this stuff. I work with my art director. I plot out like an idea for a cool bedroom or a spaceship. And then you help make that work in like, for whatever outcome, whether it's for CG or 2D or games, like you're kind of the problem solver, I would say, the visual problem solver.
Okay.
That's what
in terms of like the problem solving versus I don't know, like that combination of like we're trying to solve visual problems, but then we're also maybe the storytelling aspect of visual development. How do you kind of juggle those two of like, hey, we're trying to solve problems, and those are maybe the same problem, but but just kind of the storytelling aspect of it all.
Mhm.
What do you kind of, how do you juggle those?
I mean, yeah, it feels sometimes like you're juggling a lot of small plates at once because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what does it look like? Is it working? What is that? Like, there's a
Right.
lot of questions. And I feel like a lot of it starts like you just got to start piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it's like my first thought is like, what does the layout look like before I've
Mm-hmm.
designed anything? Like, where does stuff go? Is there a big fist fight in this saloon? Maybe I shouldn't put like a fancy fountain in the center of it, like where
Mm-hmm.
people have to go. And once that's figured out, it's kind of like, okay, well, what is that location on the inside? And then I gather a buttload of ref.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I use that ref to like come up with some like rough ideas. And then once somebody like higher up has picked what they like, then I like specify and continue to I feel like it's really important to start really vague,
Mm-hmm.
and then just kind of like bring it into something really detailed. That way you're not painting a ton of super detailed paintings that get rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And also you're designing in a way that's like manageable for yourself. Because if somebody was like, poop out a completely finished, realized castle with everything in it that I will like immediately, like you couldn't do that. It would be impossible and
Right.
you'd be stressed out, right? So yeah,
It would just,
I guess
you wouldn't also be solving problems. You might be just making more problems.
yeah, you're just like trying to like cover up the bandage, like you're just trying to like bandage it and be like,
Yeah.
it works. So that way it's kind of like digestible, and then you're also like doing it bit by bit.
This is the world of visual development. Can we see our drawings as we
Yeah,
open our eyes?
I tried to draw my dog.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's absolutely gorgeous. That is the world of visual development.
Yeah.
And that is completely magical, Karen.
Dogs and stars.
Mine's just a child's
Oh,
mess. That was visualize, which I don't know what that. Yeah, a visual development conversation. Bang bang bang. We're talking to student Karen now. This is a segment where we get back to 20-year-old Karen, student mode Karen, and just kind of that advice that you would tell yourself that you wish you knew as a student. Yeah. So just you talking to yourself and just shouting, please, student Karen, do this or think about this. You don't need to think about this. Yeah. Do you have anything?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's so many things. Like, don't wear that shirt on that first day of class. It's ruined by charcoal. I think the biggest thing I would say to myself, my student self, is like it's not a race. Oh my gosh. I feel like when I was in school, like I was just like, I have to hurry up and get really good and get a job, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And I got my first job, and then I was like, oh God, like I have the rest of my life. Like there's more. Like it's like a marathon. It's not like a sprint for the end. If you do that, you'll burn out.
Yeah.
And you won't make it very far.
Yeah.
And I feel like just thinking about like what it means to have like a career in visual development is so much bigger than just securing that first job. Because it's like, well, what do I draw that makes me happy? What projects do I enjoy working on? Like, I think a lot of like, I think the more confident in like what you like to draw and what you want to draw is so important for visual development. And I think a lot of times it can feel like, oh, I should look like, it's really Disney looking, or I really want to be DreamWorks looking. And that's not a bad thing if that is something you really like. But I think trying to force yourself into like a cookie cutter of what is trendy or cool, like it's just over time you will grow to kind of resent your own work. And like I think it's just really important to embrace like what you like, because there's only one of you. You're really special in that regard. Like I feel like I get a lot of questions from students who are like, oh, what sets me apart? I'm like, your existence, because nobody else lived your life, right? So you bring to the table that's something really special, and your work should like reflect that, because that's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that struggle is like a consistent thing of hey, with the student, maybe a bit of that student thing fitting into that box of, hey, can this box fit at the studio? But then that long-term investment of finding yourself is just a consistent thing that I don't know, I've seen with friends, or just consistently seen artistically, where it's like the people who have a stronger foundation and it took maybe a bit longer to write, like get that first opportunity, or maybe they don't enter the industry, they make their own kind of stuff, and get recognized for that. Like, do you end up having a way solid foundation when it's like, oh no, I just kind of drew this for this entire time and I got this down, but then it's like, oh dang, how do I can't break out of that mind. That's tough. Student Karen, thanks you. Thank you, Karen, and you give yourself a hug. What a beautiful moment.
Hey, Student Karen. Yeah, for sure.
We're on to everyone's favorite fruit of knowledge, where I eat a fruit. Today's fruit is a tangerine that I bought yesterday. And it's a fresh tangerine. I'm excited to eat this, but it's gonna be tough to peel. So I'm gonna peel and eat it. And I think it's gonna take me not more than a minute. Karen, it'll take me longer than a minute. But within that period of time, drop. I think that because we haven't necessarily talked too much, I think visual development advice, visual development knowledge, or just anything that is pertaining to your expertise as an artist. Dropping that art knowledge. Here we go. Fruit of knowledge. Ready, go.
Name your layers in Photoshop. It's super important, and you'll thank yourself. Oh my god, the pressure. I knew I was gonna choke. Draw what you like. It's great to have interests that are outside of animation. In fact, getting references and having visual references that are unrelated to animation can be really great and give you like something different. Always look at reference before you design anything. Always keep folders of all your reference in labeled categories, because you never know when you want to go back for them. It's always good to, if the drawing's not working, throw it out, just draw it again. That feeling of like, what if I can't draw it again? You can do it because you drew it. You can draw it again, but better. Always start really rough and small, so you don't have to do a ton of work before you tighten up the drawing. Save a lot, always save, and save multiple versions of a file in case it corrupts. Start with a really plain brush, like a round circle when you do concepts, instead of like a text, like a really crazy brush, because sometimes it's easy to get a shape read first. Like focus on shape read before you get into details. If you're not sure if a layout's working, flip it mirror like backwards to see if it's looking weird. That sometimes solves it. Never be afraid to change the aspect ratio of your drawing. If it's not working, just expand it. Just keep pulling it out until it works, because that's really helpful. Lighting is really nice, and it's good to research it. So definitely like look outside and investigate that. That's really important. If you don't know what it looks like, Google it, or look on YouTube, because a lot of times there are videos that will probably solve what you're trying to design. Or Pinterest. Pinterest has a lot of good stuff
Done.
too.
I finished my tangerine. You finished. That was so much knowledge that we just consumed.
That was so stressful. You feel like that now.
That was just a ton of just like, and that ran the gamut too of like, oh, that is, bing, 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 bing. Thank you for playing the incredibly stressful game of Fruit of Knowledge. It was delicious. That knowledge was delicious. Oh yeah, that's the end of the round. That's the end of round 2. Very nice. Very nice. We're rounding the corner into round 3, which this is the best part. Questions. Ask your audience questions. Ask your questions. Write them now. And as we do that, I might ask some questions. Karen, in terms of the day-to-day aspects of kind of your job, what is the process of don't know, you getting an assignment and maybe just kind of your day as a Viz Dev artist?
Oh, sure. Well, usually I sign into my computer and I turn on Zoom.
Yes.
I have morning check-ins. Yeah, on the show I'm currently on, we have morning check-ins every day, so it's nice. Essentially, like I get launched on something, I sit down with directors, my art director, we go over like story needs or specific things that they want,
Mm-hmm.
and I take note of that, and then I'll do like a quick rough drawing usually. Like I usually try to avoid doing anything super tight until everything is agreed on, because there's so much like you don't want to paint that perfect chair, right? And then they're like, I hate that chair. Or, can you get that chair in like green and make it 3 times as large? And I'm like, or as wide or something. And you're like, I painted it already. So to avoid that, I keep everything very loose. And then I slowly refine as we go. But yeah, essentially like every day the check-ins are just kind of to be like, oh yeah, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm planning to do for the day.
Right.
They're always there. So it doesn't feel like I'm designing in a void, which is nice.
Right.
Because sometimes you can be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I just bug my art director and I'm like, hey, this looks weird. Do you know why it looks weird? Because I don't know why it looks weird, but it looks weird.
How much do you kind of just like the back and forth or just sending, like to your art director? Yeah.
I try to check in a lot just because like you just never want a surprise, right? Like sometimes if you didn't check in, who knows, right? Script changed. They're like, oh, it's now on the moon. And like,
damn.
And you're like, oh no. Or it's like, even when you talk, there can be misunderstandings, or you're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like a bar on the moon, and they're like, no, it's a moon in the bar, and you're like, oh no. Or small things like that, and it's good to catch it early. So I just like to always be on the same page. I don't like presenting stuff when there's like a huge surprise of like, look at all this stuff you haven't seen in a week, because I guarantee you there will be like 500 notes, like, and nobody likes that. So yeah. I think it's good. I mean, the art director's job is essentially to kind of be like your parents and be like, are you okay? Are you imploding? What is that? Like, help you with that. That looks weird. So yeah, I think it's great to always kind of check in.
Yeah. There's a question on like just, how much time does the job give you to finish an assignment or just kind of the time length of doing the job, and then usually how many things at a time are assigned?
Oh, I mean, it wildly varies from production to production. Like TV is always really fast paced, which is great if you like to work on a lot of assignments at once and wear like a lot of hats and kind of like be more experimental, because you like stuff is just like you finish it, it's approved, it's made, it's gone. Like you can't go back to you can't go back and continue to finesse it, right? So like I started out in TV, like the first 3-4 years of my work in animation was in TV. And sometimes it'd be like, you have a week to do a set. You have, a day to do a few props. Like we had this schedule thing at DreamWorks where they would essentially overlap episodes. So you'd be working on like 4 episodes at once. But they just be in like various stages of like, it's episode 5 has roughs. Episode 6 is in color. Episode 7 is in like finance, so you just learned really well to manage everything. And it'd be like, I have to come up with the rest for a set in 30 minutes because that's all the time I have today, because I have that sticker up, so. But in feature, like I've noticed it's a lot slower, and there's like you could mess with the design all the way up until it like is like baked into a render in a frame. So it's cool because like I have like 2 months to work on a set, but then also the amount of detail in that set is like eye-watering. Like there's stuff in there that I'm like, I didn't know I needed to design what the bottom of this table with the screw looks like with gum on it. Like, but we did because, just in case they look at it. So it's got its own like quirks and charms. Like there's a trade-off. You get less time, you get to make more stuff. You can solve more problems, which is fun. In feature, you get way more time and you can like really love a design, but you can also like kind of drown in it.
Right.
And then sometimes super sudden changes come up there where you're like, oh no. But yeah, it varies. But
here's one. What is something your teammates have done that has made your job easier?
Sharing everything we come up with. So my coworker made a brush that, can make trees in our show a lot faster. They share it and we all can do it a lot faster. Or it's like, I made a custom text for all the branding we do, so we don't have to hand letter every single poster, and we share it, right? Or like, like one show I was on, like we pretty much went super down, like everybody used a lot of Blender stuff because one of our artists was super wizard at Blender, and
Yeah.
he actually even taught us like all these tricks. So I think like sharing information between each other is like largely like I've learned so much just from my coworkers, way more than I would say like school.
Yeah.
And that's like the best thing. That's like what my favorite thing is actually about working in a studio, because you learn all these nuggets just constantly.
Yeah, and some of those nuggets end up like potentially online, or like you see kind of in a like, hey, here's a little tutorial. Yeah, and like, but the general share of stuff like that has been like probably the biggest way to learn for me. It's just we got to share stuff because it makes our jobs easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's largely that. It's like we must survive, share everything, or else.
In terms of just kind of general like getting into the industry, or being going to art school or being a self-taught artist, just do you have general advice as for maybe breaking into the industry, or just the idea of going to school, not going to school, kind of how do you learn?
I mean, I think it depends on like a couple of factors, like how independent are you, how good are you at like self learning. Like I needed to go to school because I felt like I had no foundational basis at all, and like for me, like art center like really helps in giving me that like foundation and problem solving and like a really rigorous like just technical foundation to work off of. But I had classmates who were like already out of the box really good, and they didn't get as much out of that because they were like, I already am pretty independent and like can just kind of go do stuff. So I think you have to evaluate based on like how much you want like 4 years of structure and kind of like telling you how to do stuff from scratch, but not necessarily preparing you for industry, but just making you like a well-rounded technical artist. Really, that's what a lot of these schools will do. I can't speak for all the schools, but like Art Center, they kind of had the issue where they didn't quite know exactly, like they didn't transition you into working very well. They just kind of were like, hey, you graduated, you got a job. And you're like, did I though? Like, so it was there was a bit of a disconnect in that respect for me. And a lot of that just turned into like legwork that I just bugged a lot of artists that I liked. And I went to as many talks as I could, and like CTN and Lightbox wasn't around back then, but CTN, I would like go and like talk to like every recruiter who would like make eye contact with me. I was like, you. And like from that, I gained kind of a better consensus of like how to make a portfolio work for industry and like what it means to want to do Viz Dev, because I still didn't really know what that was when I graduated.
Yeah. In terms of just kind of like your general advice for portfolio stuff, do you have any, I don't know, general portfolio guidance?
I think, and it's like kind of a catch-22, because I feel like nowadays recruiters are looking for portfolios of people who have pipeline work, like they've worked, but then as a student, there's no way you would have that.
Right.
But they expect you to have it. But I think the best thing that you can do is just to kind of like think about what the end product of your designs are going towards. Like if you're designing a ton of environments and cool places, like is it eventually going to be like a 2D animation? Then maybe think about what layouts look like, 2D layouts and paintings and things like that. If it's going to be for CG, you might want to like hash out like what are the texture callouts, or like what is the geometry of all the like objects and like an orthographic view, like stuff that is like pertinent to who will essentially eventually take all of your information and make it.
Right.
Or in games, it's like, well, where's the character walk? So I have to think about path of action and stuff that would help like level designers. So it's like a little bit of just looking into like how it's made and then making your portfolio like fit that. Like the nice thing is like the creative part, that's just whatever you like, right? Whatever you want to draw. You like, aliens attacking raccoons in space. I don't know. Draw that. Like almost the subject matter is not, it's like the icing on the cake. They're really looking at your like technical ability, right? And then your storytelling and your fun creative stuff is like your personal flair that you're adding to that.
Right.
So I think if you have those two factors in a portfolio, then it's like a pretty strong portfolio.
Yeah, no, I think that's crazy good advice. What are your tips so that just in terms of making backgrounds, like I don't know, not be just get drained in a dull, not just be completely dull,
Mm.
and I don't know, organizing your painting or your background, organizing your
Um,
visual projects so that it's not a visual mess.
Mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
creating a mess.
clarity is so important. I start with really small thumbnails and I
Mm-hmm.
use like 100 opacity, like almost like a Sharpie.
Mm,
It's just like 100 opacity. I use three values like white, black, and 50% gray.
mm-hmm.
And I use those three values to hash out my foreground, middle ground, background, however many layers, right? I think of it as a picture book when you're drawing a layout. It's
Okay.
like, what's in the super foreground? What's in the midground? Where's my focal point?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not even thinking about designing the objects. I'm just thinking about like the layout, like where shapes are. Cause like the clearer that is,
Right.
the better chance your final painting will look good. Because once you start adding detail, you're fighting that. Like the more detail you add, the less clear it will become, right? So it's a
Right.
balance when you're painting. So just try to start with like the strongest composition you can, as simple as you can. Like you make them really teeny. They don't have to be big paintings. Don't tire yourself out doing a ton of them. And do like a lot of thumbnails. Like make 10, make 20, no more than 5 minutes each. And then you can look at them and pick a few you like and finesse them a little more.
Yeah.
And then from those you can pick the one you like and then finish it. So like that way you're kind of making you're making a large pool that you can kind of slowly refine down instead of being like, I'm gonna do one huge painting and then like perish midway because it was so much work to draw everything and everything at once. It can feel really tiring.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of tries.
And in
That kind of
terms
helps.
of like also that translating to, I don't know, like the portfolio work or the process work, like that is part of the process, and people kind of want to see that. Is that
Oh yeah, yeah.
right?
It's great to show like from start to finish on like a page, just
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like my roughs, the rough I looked at, the black and white layout that I did, and
Right.
then like a full color night and day version or whatever. Like that's actually really valuable because that's what you would be doing on the job.
Right.
So showing that like your process is super important, for sure. Yeah.
Um. Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. What about balancing your day while you work from home? Yeah.
Mm.
Just in terms of balancing that work life, and yeah, I don't know. Just in terms of we're in a new work situation, but even prior to this, just that balance of work life and
Mm.
and your life.
Yeah, I think it's super important to definitely have a lot of separation. Like it's hard now since we're working at home. Like I sit here and also work on my personal stuff, but I
Right.
also work. But I just try to think like 9 to 6 o'clock, the 8 hours that I have work, I will work, and then when I leave that, I just don't I disengage. Like
Yeah.
I try not to actually come in here if I don't have to, or like if it was work, I would just like go home and like do other stuff. Like I think it's really important to not like when I started out, I kind of had this bad habit where I'd be like, I'll just do like an extra hour here and I'll just like squeeze in like a little bit on the weekend,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just kind of I'm just researching. It's, like it wasn't even like I was working on it. I would just be like, I'll just look into stuff to kind of help me, be a little more, prepared the next day or something. But it quickly made me like very tired.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I think it's like when you're working, yeah, put all your effort into it, do all the stuff, but like those little bits that you steal here and there to try to get ahead a little bit won't make a difference. If anything, they hurt you because you end up tired and burned out.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest advice is just like when you finish work, just leave it
Just
the
leave.
back of your mind.
That's good.
Yeah, I have like a coworker. He was like the super zen guy, and he was always like, when on my way home as I'm driving, he's like, I am letting all my thoughts from work just dissolve,
Wow.
and I won't look at it until I sit down the next morning. He's like, I go home and I paint, oil paints with my wife, and I have dinner, and I don't think about work.
My goodness.
And I'm like, that's amazing because I'm still not great at turning it off sometimes.
Yeah, but that is kind of like a weird exercise, or like you found your process for letting go of kind of the work. Okay, last question. What was the most difficult thing that you did learn in kind of your art career? Yeah, whether or not that's kind of a technical thing or yeah, just like in terms of the work process. But the most difficult thing to learn, and then how did you kind of get there? How did you get over that?
The most difficult thing.
And that's
I guess one of the most.
that just doesn't have to be with your job or anything, but yeah, it could be learning or any of it.
I guess it's like a technical thing. So the hardest thing originally for me was like I couldn't get the image in my head to look like the drawing that I drew. And it was so frustrating. And I'm sure everybody has this problem. Even now I still have this problem.
Right.
But it was like I was like, how do I catch my body up to what my brain is thinking? And a lot of it came down to just like, if the drawing isn't working, I just like dump it and draw a new one. Like I feel like I always had this problem where I was very attached to a drawing. Like I would draw it and I'd be like, I can fix it. And I would just keep messing with it until it just mutated into something horrible. And a lot of it was like a lot of it started with like, I couldn't get the lighting on something correct. That was like the start of it. I was like, I can't get it to work. And I remember going to one of my teachers who was like a little crazy. He was like a little bit of a temper, but I remember he was like, oh, if you don't know how to do it, just like paint it. Like if you don't know the time of day, just like look at your window and paint every hour. Just do like a quick painting of the view outside and label it, right? And then look at it. And then continuously try to figure out like, what does 9 a.m. look like? What does 10 a.m. look like? Like if you're feeling like there's a gap between what you're mentally trying to achieve and what you're physically trying to achieve, it's probably because you just don't have enough information. So he was just like, and I was like, oh, that's actually, and I did that exercise and it was very weird and kind of a stressful Saturday because I was just like, what time is it? But in the long run, I feel like that actually really made me like change my workflow. Like if I felt like the drawing wasn't working, it wasn't so much like, is it my skill? It's like, I just need to look into it more. Like I need to research and figure out like, what is it? Why can't I get this to work? You know, whether it was looking at a lot of reference or looking at other artists or even like watching unrelated like shows or things that kind of were relevant. I don't know. It's just like, I feel like as Viz Dev artists, there's like an unending quest to like know more about stuff just because we're always designing crazy weird things and it doesn't come out of nowhere. A lot of it's just like you just have to know a lot of reference and look at a lot of stuff and understand what stuff, like how it's made and stuff. Yeah, I guess that's
a great answer. On that note, man, that's a bing. Here you go. You did it. You achieved the dream. You have dropped all of the knowledge that we can receive. Let's find out what song 3 is. You've done it, Karen. You have achieved all that we could have ever dreamed of. And you have. It's so loud. You know, that's the case. All right? This isn't perfect, people. But that's the price of knowledge. And on that note, boom! The knowledge clock has rung. Clap, 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 clap. Everybody clap for Karen. Thank you so much for dropping knowledge. But no, we got to get to some business. All right, so after some quick tabulations, the knowledge points is 368 knowledge points. Jeez. Karen, you don't just get this. You don't just get the check. You don't just get these bags, which there's hundreds of these. What's more important is you get the squab it. Squab it. Which, geez. Thank you for playing. You know what? I think you should also say thank you to us for giving you these things, for you winning these things, the possibility. But yeah, seriously, this is also the first time that we've had just a visual development artist doing this, and this has been super insightful, super helpful. Thank you so much for dropping the knowledge and sharing those secrets. On that note, you do kind of we just have the final word, which is that last bit of advice before we all go off and go continue to grow. I don't know, and have a good day. Final word, Karen. Go ahead. Take it away.
The final word. Well, my brain is so fried.
Yeah, I know you've
a
shared,
workout mentally. I feel like I came in thinking it's
shared
gonna be chill, and I'm like,
a crazy amount.
I think, I think a good takeaway is just always find a way to make it something you like to draw. Whether it's portfolio or an assignment or whatever, like it's so important to like enjoy what you're drawing, you know? So find a way, sneak it in, make some stuff like, yeah.
That is a killer final word. Karen, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming too. And yeah, that's another share your secrets. We've shared it. And then, yeah, thank you, Karen, for sharing your secrets.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Bye.